These 5-minute radio programs were recorded in 2021 by Jim McDonald for broadcast by KDET in Center, Texas. We hope you'll benefit from these and share them with others.
We've shown that what God says He has done, He has done. That what God promised He will do, He will do. God's word are true. Today our study is of a prophecy made by a young unnamed prophet in the early days of the divided kingdom. When Solomon died, Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, led a revolt against Rehoboam, Solomon's son and heir. 10 of the 12 tribes joined that revolt, and the nation became the divided kingdom, the northern kingdom called the kingdom of Israel, the southern Judah. Jeroboam, who was acclaimed king by the rebelling tribes, was fearful of his position and went about to secure it. The 12 tribes were divided politically, but still worshipped in the same temple. And Jeroboam reasoned that were this to continue, differences would be forgotten and they would become one nation again. So Jeroboam devised a plan to prevent that. Cunningly, he chose 2 places that were at Dan and Bethel where his subjects might worship. He set up altars upon which sacrifices might be offered, and golden calves at each place for his subjects to worship. And he said to them, "It's too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Behold thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt." 1 Kings 12:28. Jeroboam's substitution was a grievous sin against Jehovah. First, the creation of golden calves to worship was strictly forbidden by the 10 Commandments. The second of those commandments forbade the making of an image of God, Deuteronomy 5:8. Furthermore, God commanded the nation in the wilderness that when He gave His law to them, then the place He chose in Israel, there Israel was to come, bring their offerings and worship God, Deuteronomy 12:5. God chose Jerusalem as that place. So, when Jeroboam set up his altar and his golden calf at Bethel, he came there to worship with the people. The sin was not ignored by God, and He sent a young prophet with a message to the king and to cry against the altar there. He said, "O altar, altar, thus saith Jehovah, behold, a son shall be born unto the house of David, Josiah by name, and upon thee shall he sacrifice the priests of the high places that burn incense upon thee, and men's bones shall they burn upon thee." 1 Kings 13:2. As a sign that prophecy would come to pass, the prophet said the altar against which he cried would be rent, its ashes would be poured out. 1 Kings 13:2. Scarcely had he uttered these words until the altar did split apart and its ashes were poured out. Jeroboam was indignant. He stretched out his hand toward the young prophet and commanded his officers to seize him. But an astonishing thing happened. The king's arm froze in place. He could not draw it back to his side. Now, of the prophet he intended to injure, the king begged him to pray God for the restoration of his arm. The prophet did, and the king's arm was restored. The centuries passed. At first the fortunes of Jeroboam's kingdom prospered, but evil times lay ahead of it. His history was a violent one, changing dynasties about 8 times. Many of the reigning kings were assassinated. Ultimately, the nation ceased to exist, carried into Assyrian captivity. But what about the prophecy the young prophet had made? Had it failed? 350 years passed. Then one day a young godly king of Judah arose, whose name, yes, you guessed it, it was Josiah. And he was a descendant of King David. And guess what? He desecrated that altar at Bethel with the bones of dead men and the priests that offered incense upon it. You can read this story in 2 Kings 23:15 through 17. God's word is true, friend, just as the psalmist wrote.